Creatures. Dragonlings. Newly hatched dragons are roughly the size of a deer and voraciously hungry. They live for a short time in their mother's lair before venturing out on their own. The slender, wingless creatures are born in vast numbers, as only a few ever make it to adulthood. Pride Demon. Let me explain what it is to face a Pride Demon, my friends. You may scoff and say that our talents exist only to face mages, but you will encounter demons often. They will be summoned by Malefica and bound to do his bidding, and while at times they will be forced into possession of a host, they will also face you in their true form. A powerful opponent indeed, do not underestimate it. Pride is powerful and intelligent. When we have encountered one in its true form, its most common attacks are bolts, fire and ice. Fire they will use to ban an opponent, and the magical flame will combust anything that you wear regardless of make. Ice they will use to freeze an opponent in place. Be cautious, for they enjoy employing this against warriors in particular. More than one group of Templars has made the mistake of attempting to overwhelm a Pride Demon and suffered the consequences, believe me. And if you think that having the aid of other mages will assist you, you are wrong. Pride Demons can render themselves immune to magic for a short time, and I adapt to a dispelling magic that is cast upon you, as much as we Templars are able to disrupt spells. Think on that for a moment, my friends. Be wary of how prideful you become, lest you find too much in common with such a fiend. Transcript of a lecture given by Varen, Templar Commander of Tantavale, 686 steel. The Litany of Adralla. Items. The Litany of Adralla. Adralla of Varentium dedicated her life to the study of blood magic, the academic study rather than the practice. A deeply pious maid, she was renowned in her day for having found a counter to every form of mind control, a defense against dream walkers, and even counter spells to demonic summons. Her efforts went unappreciated in her native winter, however. After 3 different magisters attempted to have her killed, she fled the country, choosing to take refuge in the land of blessed and trustless Bath. She spent the remainder of her days with the circle in Ferelden. The Litany of Adralla disrupts the casting of mind control spells. Use the litany whenever a creature tries to dominate another with magic, and it will interrupt the casting. Once the spell is in effect and the character is under a blood mage's power, it is Yusaris the Dragonslayer. In the company of monsters he went, down the empty wolf roads after the dragon, to the lands where the ice is like steel and the air goes thin as a beggar, and every rocky path is strewn with the bones of the lonely dead. There they dwelt, and 50 souls were worn to rust the ruin, before at last they found the cave of Fenshal, ancient keeper of the mountains, bane of wolves. Dane sought a way in which dragon might be felled, fiend of fire and talon, its scales brighter than any warrior's mail, teeth greater than men, and all around the slumbering worm were bones, wolves, men, beasts beyond counting. The fume of death frightening even the wolf pack, and Dane, desperate, crept into the cavern to seek the monster's death alone. There, shining among the dead like a star, his hand found a sword, Yusaris, forged by the dwarf smith of an Almari lord long ago, waiting age after age to be taken to battle once more, and this Dane freed from the earth and struck at the eye of the dragon still sleeping, with a swift, terrible blow, and Fenshal woke, wroth only to die. From Dana the Werewolf. The legend of the blade Yusaris predates Andraste, the sword that Dane found in the dragon's treasure hoard, which he used to slay both Fenshal and the werewolf, was passed on to his son Hafter. Dane may have been fiction, but Hafter was fact. In 140 Divine, he led the Almari tribes against Darkspawn that flooded into the Ferelden Valley from the Dwarven lands. He not only drove back the horde, but also defeated combined forces of the Avars and Chasing who hoped to take advantage of the chaos. His victories earned him such respect from the tribes he was named the First 10. After years of ruling the valley in peace, it is said that after Hafter left Ferelden, sailing into the unknown east of Amaranthine Ocean with a blade still in hand, never to be seen again. Magic and religion, keeper of secrets. The twins, Vallaslin and Dirthamen, are the eldest children of Elgar'nan, the All-Father, and Mythal, the Protector. The brothers were inseparable from the moment of their conception, known for their great love of each other. That is why we often speak of Vallaslin in one breath and Dirthamen in the next, for they cannot bear to be apart, not even in our tales. When the world was young, the gods often walked the earth, and Vallaslin and Dirthamen were no exception. Both were delighted by the many wonders of our earth. They played with the animals, whispered to the trees, and bathed in the lakes and streams. Their days were filled with bliss, and they did not know sorrow. And then one day, while passing through the forest, Vallaslin and Dirthamen came across an old and sickly deer resting beneath a tree. "Why do you sit so still, little sister?" asked Vallaslin. "Play with us," said Dirthamen. "Alas," spoke the deer, "I cannot. I am old, and although I wish to go to my rest, my legs can no longer carry me." Taking pity on the deer, Vallaslin gathered her up into his arms and carried her to her rest beyond the vale. Dirthamen tried to follow them, but the shifting grey paths beyond the vale would not let him. Separated for the first time from Vallaslin, Dirthamen wandered aimlessly till he came across two ravens. "You are lost, and soon you will fade," the raven named Fear said to Dirthamen. "Your brother has abandoned you. He no longer loves you," said the other, named Deceit. "I am not lost, and Vallaslin has not abandoned me," replied Dirthamen. He subdued the ravens and bade them carry him to Vallaslin. This they did, for they had been defeated and were now bound to Dirthamen's service. When Dirthamen found Vallaslin, he found also the deer, who once again was light on her feet, for her spirit was released from her weakened body. Both Vallaslin and Dirthamen rejoiced to see this. Vallaslin vowed that he would remain to carry all the dead to the place beyond, just as he did the deer, and Dirthamen stayed with him, for the twins cannot bear to be apart. From the story of Vallaslin and Dirthamen, as told by Gisharal, keep of the Ralafarin clan of the Dalish Elves. Elgar'nan, god of vengeance. Long ago, when time itself was young, the only things in existence were the sun and the land. The sun, curious about the land, bowed its head close to her body, and Elgar'nan was born in the place where they touched. The sun and the land loved Elgar'nan greatly, for he was beautiful and clever. As a gift to Elgar'nan, the land brought forth great birds and beasts of sky and forest, and all manner of wonderful green things. Elgar'nan loved his mother's gifts and praised them highly, and walked amongst them often. The sun, looking down upon the fruitful land, saw the joy that Elgar'nan took in her works, and grew jealous. Out of spite, he shone his face full upon all the creatures on earth he had created, and burned them all to ashes. The land cracked and split from bitterness and pain, and cried salt tears for the loss of all she had wrought. The pool of tears cried for the land became the ocean, and the cracks in her body the first rivers and streams. Elgar'nan was furious at what his father had done, and vowed vengeance. He lifted himself into the sky and wrestled the sun, determined to defeat him. They fought for an eternity, and eventually the sun grew weak, while Elgar'nan's rage was unabated. Eventually, Elgar'nan threw the sun down from the sky and buried him in a deep abyss created by the land's sorrow. With the sun gone, the world was covered in shadow, and all that remained in the sky were the reminders of Elgar'nan's battle with his father, drops of the sun's lifeblood which twinkled and shimmered in the darkness. From the tale of Elgar'nan and the sun, as told by Gisharal, keeper of the Ralafarin clan of the Dalish Elves. June, the god of the craft. We dedicated all of our crafts to June, for it is he who taught the people to bend the branches of trees to make our bows, and to fashion coverings of furs and ironbark. Without June, would we have the Araval or the harnesses of our Hala? When the people were young, we wandered the forest without purpose. We drank from streams and ate the berries and nuts that we could find. We did not hunt, for we had no bows. We wore nothing, for we had no knowledge of spinning or needlecraft. We shivered in the cold nights and went hungry through the winters, when all the world was covered in ice and snow. Then Siles, the hearth-keeper, came and gave us fire and taught us how to feed it with wood. June taught us to fashion bows and arrows and knives, so that we could hunt. We learned to cook the flesh of the creatures we hunted over Siles' fires, and we learned to clothe ourselves in the furs and skins, and the people were no longer cold and hungry, as told by Gisharal, keeper of the Ralafarin clan of the Dalish Elves. Culture and history. The long walk. When our people left the winter, we had nothing except the knowledge that for the first time in countless centuries, we were free. It was Shartan's dream that one day we would have our own homeland, where we would live as we chose. After the long struggle that claimed the lives of many, even Shartan himself, we were granted the Dales. And though the Dales were to the south of the land of Olay, and a long way from after the winter, it mattered little. We were going home, and so we walked. We called our journey the Long Walk, for that was what it was. We walked with what little we had on our backs. Some walked without shoes, for they had none. Whole families, women with infants, the old and the young alike, all of them made their way across the land on foot. And if one of our people could no longer walk, we carried him, or sometimes left him behind. Many perished along the way. Some died of exhaustion, others simply gave up and fell by the wayside. A great number were set upon by human bandits, even though we had few possessions. Along the way, a growing number began to bemoan the decision to leave the winter. At least in the winter, they said, we had food and water and shelter. What do we have here? Nothing but the open sky and the prospect of the never-ending road ahead. Some turned back towards the winter, but most of us continued walking. And the gods rewarded those of us who did not waver by bringing us to the dales. Our people called the new city Hallam Shural, the end of the journey, and for a time it was home. I told by Gisharal, keeper of the Rala clan of the Dalish elves. Vallaslin bloodwriting. When the children of our people come of age, they earn the privilege of wearing Vallaslin, the bloodwriting. It sets us apart from the Shemlan and from the elves who have thrown their lot in with them. It reminds us that we will never again surrender our traditions and beliefs. The ritual deserves great reverence. The one who is to gain the Vallaslin must prepare by meditating on the gods and the ways of our people and by purifying the body and the skin. When the time comes, the keeper of the clan applies the blood writing. It is done in complete silence. Cries of pain are signs of weakness. If one cannot tolerate the pain of the blood writing, they are not ready to undertake the responsibilities of an adult. The keeper may stop the ritual if they decide that the one gaining the Vallaslin is not ready. There is no shame in this, for all children are different, and our ancestors once took centuries to come of age. As told by Gisharal, keeper of the Rala clan of the Dalish elves. Characters. First-Enchanter Irving. The circle will go on, and we will learn from its tragedy and be strengthened by it. There is no higher office in the Circle Tower than the First Enchanter. The one who holds this title must not only be an able administrator, but also a mentor, leader, and surrogate parent to all the mages in the tower. Irving has proven himself to be all these things with an added dose of cunning. Most apprentices know that little goes on in a tower that Irving does not know. He can soothe Templars angered by some childish magical prank at the same time that he lauds the prankster, and everyone walks away satisfied. Although much of the circle was destroyed by Aldred's abominations, Irving survived and plans to rebuild what he can. Sten. That's the new part. He was sent with a small group of Qunari soldiers to investigate the blight and report back. Outside Lothering, they were ambushed by Darkspawn. They fought off the attack, but only Sten survived. Farmer's farm found him dying and took him in, but when he awoke, alone and alarmed, and unarmed, he panicked, killing the entire family. Realizing he had sacrificed his honor, Sten waited for the villagers to come and surrendered, expecting death. I don't know if I've read this. Sten has an eye for paintings, an appreciation that might seem out of character, but is actually an extension of Qunari discipline. He respects an artist for careful composition, and a skill that is as much about where the brush stroke stops as where it begins. Wynne. For Wynne, the printer, I think we've heard that, but she spent many years mentoring apprentices within the circle, and Piers thought so highly of her that she was asked to be First-Enchanter Irving's successor, but she refused, saying that she had no desire to work in the upper echelons. We've heard that, though. When word reached the tower of King Calen's coat of arms, Wynne volunteered to go to Ostagar. For Wynne, the printed word is a window to true understanding. A scholar by heart, she feels that what a people can commit to the page is sacred by definition. Keeper Zathrian. Even with all our magic and skill, we only delay the inevitable. It is said that the elves lived in Ferelden long before any others set foot there. And though most of their knowledge has been lost, it falls to the keeper of each clan to preserve what they have. Zathrian is an old, severe elf with little love for outsiders, but his clan is facing a more trying enemy than most. Zevran Arainai. I don't know how much I've read about that already. Most efficient. Zevran shows an affinity for the finer things in life, hardly surprising for an Antivan crow, but his appreciation can be more poetic than he lets on. A simple bar of refined silver or gold, uncomplicated by a craftsman hammer, is elegantly valuable. Yeah, that's the new one. Witherfang. Witherfang is, according to Keeper Zathrian, a wolf. He is no ordinary wolf, however. He is a wolf possessed by a powerful spirit and the source of the werewolf curse that plagues the Brazilian forest. While Witherfang is hundreds of years old and very powerful in his own right, the only way to end his curse is to cut out his heart and bring it to Zathrian. Books and Songs. The Legend of Calenhad, Chapter 2. With the allegiance to Al Meridin, Calenhad began to rise to greatness. Some of Meridin's allies also pledged allegiance, but most thought him foolhardy. A boy commoner was to lead them and become king. Over the years that followed, however, Calenhad would prove himself worthy of Meridin's trust. With each victory, he won over more men to his commands, and his reputation as a man of honor spread. Eventually, during his campaign against the lowland Bannon, he met his most infamous friend and companion, the vaunted warrior Lady Shaina. Calenhad married the famously beautiful daughter of Meridin, Marin, and his firm belief in the ways of the chantry became the staple of his court. In a time when the chantry was still new to the lands and courts following Andraste had the majority of the power in Ferelden, Calenhad began to solidify the nation as one in line with the other nations around it. This piety eventually won over to Calenhad those faithful in Ferelden who had been waiting for such a leader. With Lady Shaina at his side, Calenhad was unstoppable, and by 542 exalted, the war for Ferelden had come down to one final battle against the collected forces of Simeon, Turn of Denerim, and the most potent noblemen in the land. Calenhad persuaded the Circle of Major to come to his aid, as well as the Ash Warriors, and in the Battle of White Valley, he famously defeated Turn Simeon and united the nation. During the battle, Simeon nearly killed Calenhad, but Lady Shaina intervened and took the wound for him, slaying Simeon. Calenhad was crowned king in Denerim that year, with Marin his queen, but he spent much of the months that followed nursing Lady Shaina back to health. King Calenhad's Ferelden was peaceful for a time, with the chantry spreading quickly under the king's guidance. Everywhere the king and queen went, they were surrounded by cheering crowds. The common folk celebrated Calenhad as one of their own who had achieved the impossible, and trade opened up with many outside lands for the first time in Ferelden's existence. But, as with many such golden ages, it was not to last. From The Legend of Calenhad by Brother Heron, Chantry Scribe 810 Blessed. A very chewed and moist book. Much of this is illegible. Day 42. I begin to suspect that we are being manipulated, as if by some unseen hand far above us. Always I hear the sound of clicking. Click, 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 click. Several pages are missing, and much of the ink on the remaining page has run together. And then told them I wouldn't take any cheese unless it came directly from the revered mother's hand. Mother, something similar is soaked into the pages here. Day 115. My mother told me I was special. I never knew how right she was. The ink has smeared horribly. Was Yusaris, I swear it. It looked just like the carving in the Ar's drawing room. I sent it to the circle to verify, but I haven't heard. From a very chewed and moist book. In Uthenera. No, I'm not even going to try that. I will hear that anyway. Elder, your time is come. Now I am filled with sorrow. Weary eyes need resting. Heart has become grey and slow. In waking sleep is freedom. We sing, rejoice, we tell the tales, we laugh and cry, we love one more day. From In Uthenera, traditional elven song of unknown origin. Correspondence Interruptus, we have a new one. No. My elf wrote, the heavily suggested powdered Brontehorn. I was very discreet. Your sunflower. Promises of pride. Outward will show us the way. Finally recognition within the circle and freedom from the scornful eye of the Templars. We will not be shunned. Be ready. Enchanter Garrett, Libertarian. We had that. Didn't we? I've spoken to him directly. His intentions are that we will demand the temples withdraw. I don't know that I am willing to follow, but I will be present to hear his argument. Enchanter Fons, the Quitarian. Madness! I doubt blood will be of use to you if it is flowing down the tower steps. Step away from this folly before it consumes us all, Enchanter Leuven Loyalist. The call is made. We will stride out of here with pride in our steps, regardless of the outcome. This is for the good of the circle. Outward we see to it. Libertarian Ronus. Extracurricular Studies. I am not certain if I haven't read that art too, at least in part. I don't know. I have the utmost sympathy for what happened to your charge, but it is beyond the circle's ability to anticipate every obscure demise that an apprentice might face, especially involving methods outside the already extensive realm of magical study. We simply don't have the room for additional training facilities, and there are concerns about becoming too inclusive that I will not elaborate on. Your request is denied. First-Enchanter Sinclair. If space is your excuse, I will surrender my quotas. If it is about money, I will hire the appropriate people. I will not graduate another student ignorant of weapons that any ditch digger can shove into his ribs. We teach them to append ridiculous glamours and parade arms, but they don't know simple steel. That is criminal, Enchanter Bergin. Notice herewith that the exercise area on the 4th floor shall serve as permanent berthing for the Templar garrison stationed at the tower. Since facilities that accommodate the particular training requirements are already on hand, they will be assuming an even closer watchtower over circular affairs. Enchanter Bergen's optional weapons training is cancelled until further notice. Enchanter Bergen has additionally stepped down from teaching duties. First Enchanter Sinclair. Oh, that's just cruel. Quest related. Watchguard auto-reaching. We've read that, except for Sharp Weird, a collection of powerful but undirected thoughts coalesced into fate. Such a being is in direct opposition to singular focus and drive, distraction with flesh. The mind of minds that loosed its within the fate. No, the mind or minds that loosed this within the fate must have been powerful and ancient indeed. Now, controls, inventory overload, just great. Just great. This was Servasia. Weiter.